What's up, Eagle Nation? Yeah, it's back for another episode. Again, it is a little bit late in the week, so I do apologize. You guys have heard my life story. I don't need to repeat that every single week. But we're gonna get a new episode in. It is the Damn Cup, a rivalry that's not a big rivalry, right? I really wish it was. Portland State, Eastern Washington, we're kind of out in our we're off on our own island in the big sky. There is some California teams. There's two Idaho, a Utah school, two Montanas, an Arizona school, and a Colorado school. But in the Pacific Northwest here, we're kind of out on our own. So I wish it was a bigger rivalry. It is a trophy game, but I don't know if we really truly care about this or not. I know I personally don't, but the school probably does. Portland State maybe does. I have no clue, but yeah, we're gonna review this game. We're also gonna talk about a little bit of the season on what's been going on. So we'll kind of look at the Cal Poly game because it was interesting. I don't think it was a game that any of us really expected. So yeah, we'll talk about the Cal Poly game. We'll review this Portland State game a little bit. This isn't going to be the longest episode, probably anywhere from 20 to 35 minutes, something around there. I would assume, maybe even less. Who knows? I think I want to start doing a little bit shorter episodes. But also, before we get started on football, basketball season's coming up. So we will have a kickoff basketball episode that I'll start planning for in the next few weeks. Um, Maybe even this Sunday if I get some time. I think we're doing an open house this Sunday and potentially next Sunday. So it all depends on if I have some time in this house. But I believe Eastern Washington basketball women's, um, definitely the men were picked fifth on the coaches and media poll. Um, I don't remember what the women's were picked. I believe it was on bottom half though, but the men's were picked fifth. So it was behind Montana State, Northern Colorado, Montana, Weber, and us, if I remember correctly. So those are kind of the rankings. Again, I might have missed up some of the placements. I don't have it in front of me, but I'm pretty sure we were fifth behind those four teams. And I don't know how I feel about it. So we were really young last year, extremely young. And I think we played better than what we were supposed to, right? We were tough. We were in there for a lot of games. Um, I think we were about the fifth best team last year. And man, I just, I think we're better than fifth this year. I think there was a little bit of learning curve. Again, a lot of freshmen, a lot of young underclassmen, another year under their belt. They actually had time to gel together. It was a first year coach, young team, some transfers, some new freshmen. They've been playing with each other for a year now. They've been coached for a year now. I think it's going to gel better. I actually really like our shot. I like our basketball team. The football season hasn't been, the best. So I think if you're an Eastern Washington fan, you're going to be very excited about our basketball program and our basketball year. We're going to be playing, Washington State in Spokane. It's a home game for us. So if you do have season tickets, I believe you do get the game included, even though it's not in Cheney. But I believe it is technically still a home game for us. We are hosting Washington State. So yeah, if you have season tickets, go to that game, pack that house, because I have a feeling it's going to be more Washington State fans being in Spokane, right? It's a bigger school. That's where a lot of them still move. Of course, Seattle's a big Washington State area too, but Spokane, a lot of Washington State fans, a lot of Gonzaga fans, definitely some Eastern fans, but we need to pack that house. We need to make it look like a home game, or else, unfortunately, it's just a road game. So pack the house, go look up that Washington State, Eastern Washington game. It would be really cool if this team can get a potential upset, which I don't even know if it's really an upset. I do think our team is going to be very competitive this year. We shoot the ball well, we pass the ball well, we have a pretty high tempo. I didn't see a big drop off from when Shante left us, and Coach Riley took it over. I just don't see that big drop off. I think the talent is actually it's up there. It's improved. We're just really young. So it's going to be fun to watch them gel together. I have very high hopes for this season. I don't want to put too much eggs in the basket, if that's the term. I don't even know if that's the correct terminology for that phrase, but yeah, I'm pretty excited. Maybe I'll text Coach Riley, shoot him a message, a DM, and see if he can pop on and maybe review this team a little bit. Again, my schedules are so weird that I would hate to say, hey, please jump on the podcast. P.S. I can only record between 11 p.m. and 12 p.m. or before 6 a.m. So and I am a little hesitant on asking if someone can jump on the podcast when I might not be the most available. So we will see. I will do my best, folks, because it would be pretty fun to have him on there reviewing the team, having the outlook. But all right, yeah. So this isn't a basketball episode right now. We're still in football season. Basketball season hasn't started. We will do that preview. But we played Cal Poly this last week. The Battle of the Best Bow. Horrible name. I don't know why I said that. But, former Bo Baldwin versus Aaron Best. Right now, Aaron Best has had his number. We're 3-0 against Bo Baldwin. So, round of applause for that. I love Bo Baldwin. I really do. Think he was a great coach. He excelled this program. Handed off the keys to Aaron Best and kind of took it running from there. But yeah, I like beating Bo Baldwin. I'll say that. I really do enjoy beating Bo Baldwin. I really wish he was, able to amplify this program a little bit more. For those of you who aren't aware of the FCS or the Big Sky or Cal Poly, and you really just follow Eastern Washington, Cal Poly used to be a triple option team, and not like Kennesaw State, where they're spreading the field, they're using speed, they're using athleticism. This was a big fullback operating triple option team. A lot of power. They would run it right up the A gap, do some little funky plays. But they were a very aggressive, powerful triple option team. And if you know anything about Bo Baldwin at Eastern Washington, he's not a triple option guy, right? We're spreading the field, air raid style, all of that. So it's been different trying to change that program completely. A whole new playbook. You got to get whole new athletes for this type of system. And they do look improved. The record might not show it, but overall, it seems like he's starting to get the talent in there, starting to get in a few more competitive games. But it's going to be a while. And unfortunately, I don't know if Cal Poly is going to keep Bo to try and change this. Most coaches, they get their 4-year try. And right now, unfortunately, it hasn't really worked out for Bo Baldwin and Cal Poly. Now, there's a completely different set of hurdles that Cal Poly has over Eastern Washington. And he said it. He said one of them was the cost of living. So trying to get kids in there, paying for rent, all of this stuff in San Luis Obispo. Now, if you're not familiar with where it is, look it up. It's probably one of the most beautiful cities in California, like towns. It's a true college town. It's a really cool area. Super expensive, extremely, extremely expensive. So not only does he have some of the other hurdles that we'll talk about, but he has this crazy cost of living hurdle that he has to try and say, all right, we'll give you a full ride. We may not be able to pay for all room and board if you're living off campus or something like that. I don't know the full details, but he said that is a giant hurdle that he's really not had to deal with. When he was at Cal being the OC, well, guess what? Cal's got quite a bit more money than Cal Poly. So maybe the hurdles weren't quite as there, but at Cal Poly, you don't have that much money for your athletic department. Beautiful facilities, extremely gorgeous facilities. John Madden, he's a former alumni from there. There's actually building a giant athletic performance center in memory of John Madden, which super cool. And if you guys are, video games like me, we grew up with Madden. So it is pretty cool to see John Madden have this giant athletic facility there. Cal Poly is doing some amazing things for their facilities and for their athletics. And I think they could be a powerhouse potentially if they can battle some of these hurdles. The other big one is academic requirements. Now, Eastern Washington, we have a lot of guys on the field that perform well in the classroom. I mean, if you look at the GPAs, we always have All-Americans, academic All-Americans. They do a phenomenal job in the classrooms. But the recruiting at Cal Poly is a little bit different than Eastern Washington. And I don't mean this to be a dig in any way, but Cal Poly and UC Davis, they are some of the top schools in the nation, not just on the West Coast, not just in California, but extremely tough academic standards to get in there. Where Eastern Washington, not the most difficult academic standards to get in there, which means there's just a different type of talent maybe you can go after. And again, I don't want that to sound negative, but you need like a 3.99 GPA to get into Cal Poly on average. You need extremely high SAT scores. There's just more limitations and restrictions to get some of those players in there where, I mean, Eastern Washington, there's just not as strict of limitations. So just by having that strict of limitations, it restricts the talent pool. That's what I'll say. But overall, beautiful place to play. Hopefully Bo Baldwin can turn it around because I love having him in the conference, even though it's against us. You know, I love beating Bo, and I'll root for him in every single game he's not playing us. So watching this game, okay, I'm going to flip my screen here. Hopefully you guys can see it. This was interesting because if you followed Cal Poly and Eastern Washington this year, not the two best off our defensive teams. We've been giving up a lot of points to everyone, right? We just have. It doesn't matter who we're playing, we're giving up quite a bit of points. I think the spread was like, what, 80, 75 points, something like that. And we were all making jokes in our Big Sky chat with some Montana State guys, Montana, Weber, Idaho guys. And we were like, oh, yeah, we should all bet the over. We should all bet the over. And I made a joke and I said, watch, this is going to be one of those weird games where it's going to be 17-14. Pretty close. I didn't believe it. I mean, it was 100% a joke when I said that. I did not believe this. I thought it was really going to be like a 42-35, 45-42 type of game because both teams have really struggled slowing down the other program. But this was a hell of a defensive effort. Jumped out to a quick, 7-7, but at the end of the first quarter, we scored 10. So 10-7, you're like, all right, this is going to be a pretty high scoring game. Then all of a sudden, nothing happened. There was a lot of big defensive plays, which was pretty exciting. But overall, this is not the typical Eastern Washington game we have seen the last few years. This was a lot like that Weber State game back in 2018. It was Eric Barrier's third start. So he started against UND the year prior. Then he played Southern Utah the week before Weber. And there was just no offensive ability. I think we lost 9-6. If I remember correctly, it was something like that. It was not that entertaining of a game, but held Cal Poly to 10 points. Here's going to be some cool things about this because, again, Eastern Washington is ranked in all the statistics as like a bottom 5 defensive program this year. That is the reality of where Eastern Washington is statistically. Now, Eastern Washington's had quite a bit more difficult schedule than pretty much every single team in the nation. So here's some things to look at. Okay, those 2 FBS games, it is what it is. They were absolutely torching us. It is what it is. Montana State, ran all over us. But compared to FCS teams, we have held Montana State to the lowest points against the FCS that they've played. Okay, interesting. Cal Poly. We've done this defensively to Cal Poly that no other FCS program has done. Only Fresno State has held them to 10 or less. So Cal Poly's been able to score on everyone. 20 points per game. Ooh, sorry about that. I don't have any water. 20 points per game or something around there. But we were able to completely shut them down for the most part. Best defensive outing that we have played and that Cal Poly has seen this year. So we have 2 of those games where we've held them to the lowest points per game against another FCS opponent. And that's when our historically bad defense That's what the statistics show, that we have a historically bad defense, and I don't think anyone would have argued with it. But out of our, 5 FCS teams, 2 of them were held to the lowest points against Eastern. Then you look at Tennessee State. Well, Tennessee State had a pretty brutal road, and right now they're undefeated in the OVC, which I didn't think a lot of us would anticipate. Right now they're undefeated in the OVC. So they played us and then Jackson State, which Jackson State statistically has a top 2 defense in the FCS, or top 3 defense. I mean, that's Coach Dion's team. Insane amount of talent that's coming there. They landed the number 1 overall recruit, which was a DB in the nation. So insane defensive talent against FCS programs. Well, that's the only FCS program that's held Tennessee State to as low as points as we have. Right? They held them quite a bit lower than us, but every other FCS program Tennessee State has played, they've held them to lower points, or we've held them to lower points than anyone else. So 3 out of our 5 teams that we have played, we kind of did what really no one else has done, / maybe one other program's done. And then you look at Sac State. Well, what they did to us, they've done to a lot of teams. Okay? Weber State, what they've done to us, they did to a lot of teams. Maybe we're not as bad as our statistics show, right? Maybe we can actually hang our hat on that and go, all right, we're not great by any means, but maybe this isn't this just really bad, horrible defensive team, a historically horrible defensive team. Maybe we go, actually, maybe it's just a little bit of the schedule in those 2 FBS games that's really altered how it is. And again, Montana State, they ran all over us. They just ran, 377 yards against Weber? And Weber, top 25 rushing defensive team. Top 25 rushing defensive team. Eastern Washington, bottom 3. That's what the statistics show. Well, they may not after this week, after Weber State was just torched by Montana State on the ground. So maybe we're not as bad. Weber State, defensively, they looked about what Eastern did against Montana State. So that gives me a little bit of high hopes that maybe we're not as bad as the statistics and the media is making us out to believe defensively, which is kind of weird because, again, statistically showing we are one of the worst. But again, no one has a schedule like us. They really just don't. So getting back into this game. Okay, offensively, there was 2 bad throws that Gunnar had. It is what it is. But overall, I mean, he was pretty accurate. The long ball's not there, and I do want to touch on this a little bit. But the rushing game, towards maybe the second half, is when we just started saying, all right, Cal Poly, we are bigger than you. We are definitely bigger than you, and we're just going to start running it down your throat. And that's kind of what happened. We were able to, get 4 or 5 yards at a time. Cal Poly really had no answer for us, and we were able to take some time off the clock. Pretty awesome power run style. That's like the North Dakota teams of the past. Again, it is Cal Poly, though, who's really struggled defensively. But we were able to show our size and our muscle against Cal Poly when maybe other aspects of the game weren't working as well. So I was pretty happy with that. Cal Poly did something really weird, though. So they have Spencer Brash, they have this other quarterback, and then Bo Kelly. So they have 3 quarterbacks now. Bo Kelly is this quarterback. He's a freshman. Bo Baldwin is extremely excited about coming into this season. He's the future of Cal Poly, all of this stuff. But Spencer Brash was the Cal drop-down transfer, I believe, who was kind of that go-to guy. He was the starter. Well, Cal Poly played all 3 quarterbacks this game. And it wasn't because, one quarterback was doing really bad, we're going to switch him out. It was a very confusing, almost for a while in the first half. It was like every drive was a different quarterback. I mean, we see this Paulette kid. That's their leading rush right there. 5 carries, 113 yards, 1 touchdown. That was their second quarterback. In the first play of the game, what was it, like a 75-yard rush all the way to the end zone? Then after that, we really slowed him down, but he was making some plays. He was the most successful guy on the field, and I don't know why when Bo Kelly was playing, because he wasn't doing it, he wasn't doing that good. We were locking them down. We were locking down their wide receivers. They couldn't do much besides that running game with their option quarterback. And they stuck it with Bo Kelly in the whole second half. Now, maybe it was one of these things where Baldwin's like, all right, we're 1-5. Don't have a lot of hope on the season right now. Let's just try and get this freshman some playing snaps against, again, statistically, the worst defense they'll play the rest of the season. We're not the worst defense, but statistically speaking, the worst defense they'll see all season. Let's try and get this kid some playing time, some snaps, some motivation under his head. If he can be successful versus us, maybe he's going to have an impact in the future. Well, it's kind of the opposite what happened. I mean, we picked him off 3 times. They really couldn't move the ball at all, held them to 50% throwing. No quarterback in the passing game had any type of answer for Eastern Washington's secondary. And again, Cal Poly's been successful throwing the ball against a lot of teams. They've lost, but they've at least been successful. They just haven't been successful stopping teams. And that is a big concern that we will talk about with Eastern Washington's offense right now. But they've been successful throwing the ball. We completely shut it down. That's something that we should be really excited about. But again, that one, so it was a 57-yard run. I said 75, same thing. That was their second string quarterback or their option style quarterback. Again, he was the only guy who really had success. So offensively, 358 yards, Cal Poly's 238 passing, pretty mediocre at 170 compared to historic Eastern Washington teams, but we were accurate throwing the ball. A lot of short routes, a lot of little slants, some screens. That's kind of going to be our bread and butter moving forward this season. And I'll explain my reasonings behind that. But I think that's what we need to stick to. Rushing the ball, extremely effective, 188 yards. That's pretty good for us. You know, if we can hover around that 200-yard mark, we're pretty dang happy. 4 yards of carry. Guess what? That gets you a first down if you're rushing 3 times in a row, which we started doing at the end. I mean, you can tell almost 50 attempts. That's a pretty big, interesting thing for us. Now, we fumbled the ball a few times, had a few interceptions, but again, we were ball hawks. We were aggressive defensively. This was definitely a game that we haven't seen all year where the defense 100% won the game. Now, against Tennessee State, the defense made the plays to win at the end, but it was mainly the offense keeping us in the game, right? The defense really struggled stopping the run against Tennessee State, especially after that second half, after that hour-long rain break. They were able to pick us apart a little bit, run through us. It was a whole different momentum shift. But here, 100% defensive effort. And it was a little frustrating to watch because the defense would make these amazing stops, make these amazing plays, and all of a sudden the offense struggled against Cal Poly. This is where we should have a little bit of a concern. I propped up the defense compared to the statistics, but Cal Poly has let everyone score. We really couldn't score. Outside of a few plays, we were having a really difficult time. Penalty-wise, we were playing a very smart, sophisticated game. We didn't screw ourselves over in the penalty department like we did against Montana State, that we did against Weber, that we did against Sac State. This was a very clean penalty-wise game. Unfortunately, we couldn't get the ball in the end zone against Cal Poly. That's really struggled defensively. Now, this does happen sometimes, even in like the MMA world. I know you guys aren't UFC fans or MMA fans, and you're like, why the hell are you going to talk about this, Skylar? But sometimes when you have 2 elite grapplers, there's no grappling. It ends up being just a striking affair, and guess what? Who cares? Someone's going down. This is kind of what it was too. We're 2 teams that like to throw the ball. We're 2 teams that like to move the offense. 2 teams that have really struggled stopping the other opposing team. Huge defensive effort by both teams. Cal Poly, they were playing fantastic for 3 quarters. I'll say that. I think defensively they were playing much better than they were supposed to. Offensively, we were not doing very well. A lot of short passes, a lot of screens. And then what we just started really doing was, again, running that power offense, just running up the gut because we are bigger than Cal Poly. We're not a small O-line. We're a pretty large O-line. Our running backs are big. So, yeah, we used kind of We used our size to our advantage in the second half of this game, and it paid off. Is a great coaching adjustment. Just wasn't the most entertaining game. It is what it is. But yeah, offensively, here's kind of the missing component, because I like what Gunner's doing. Overall, there's people online saying Gunner shouldn't be the quarterback. We should be starting Kikoa. I actually think Gunner is a solid quarterback. He's efficient. He's doing an extremely good job. There's just one key part missing, and it's Gunner doesn't have the long ball that we've had in the past, at least the accuracy on the deep ball, right? So a lot of the times what we're doing with, the last 4 or 5 years, we're doing a slant, we're doing a screen, we're running, and then all of a sudden, big play action, we're throwing it 50, 60 yards down the field and getting into Limo Jones, getting into Andrew Boston, and it's a giant play. Okay. We just don't have that this year. And that's nothing wrong with Gunner. That's just not his skill set, in my opinion. When he drops back for the long ball, I do get a little nervous. It's not the most accurate thing. He's either overshooting it or undershooting it. But I think he's extremely effective between 5 to 20 yards. I think that's what we really need to focus on. And again, this is armchair QBing. So the coach, if you hear this, you're like, Kyler, shut the hell up. You don't know what you're talking about. And I agree. I really don't. When it's anyone like a coach, a player, you have a better football mind than I ever will. Just as a fan, sitting back, watching the game, this is what I see. When it's a slant, when it's a screen, when it's 5 to 15 yards down the field, 5 to 20, I feel very confident in our team's abilities. If you need us to get the first down, I feel extremely confident getting the first down, having these short routes. I think we're extremely effective in there. And that's why he is accurate at 21 for 29. That's not a bad day. The 2 interceptions, again, you're trying to force something down the field, typically, and it doesn't work out. We just don't have that this year. But we have extremely, extremely athletic, effective wide receivers. Freddie, absolutely killing it. His effort after the catch, I mean, he's shaking and baking people. So guess what? Get him the ball at 5 yards. Have him get the other 10. Have him get the other 5. He's going to do it. He's going to do it more often than not. Throw him the ball at 10 yards. He's going to get it. Efton Chisholm, that dude's got hands. Throw the ball anywhere within that 15-yard route. He's going to grab that dang ball because Gunner can throw it very accurately in that little, window, that short window. Efton, we've seen him spin. We've seen him hurdle. We've seen him stiff arm. These 2 wide receivers can change the game. Nolan Olm, holy crap. He's an absolute beast as well. So, armchair quarterback, don't listen to me. But we're extremely effective on short routes. And I really think that is our bread and butter. That's what we need to do. Now, it's going to lead to lower scoring games, which Eastern Washington fans are probably not that excited about. But if we're winning a 24 to 21 game, I'm pretty freaking happy. Sure, it's not the 46, 44, 50-point games that we've seen in the past, but it's just a different team. We can be extremely effective, which, guess what? If we're moving the chains instead of these giant, big, explosive plays, our defense is going to get a little bit more time to rest. There's one thing we have not done well in the past 5, 6, all 10 years, the last 10 years. We have not given the defense the ability to rest on the sidelines, which guess what? When we're scoring in 30 seconds, that defense is out there the whole time. We took 31 minutes off the clock, almost 32 minutes off the clock in this game. That defense got to rest. And when they were resting, guess what? Pretty dang effective. So, move the chains, slow, methodical pace, keep that defense off the field for a little bit so then they can be well rested and they can shut down the opposing team. That's kind of my, again, armchair quarterback. It is what it is. Maybe don't listen to me. But we got the damn cup coming up. The damn cup, the regional rivalry. It is a trophy game against Portland State. I don't know. Do you guys care about this game? I know we really do care about Montana. I think we're starting to care about Idaho. I know we always care about Montana State as well. At least that's how it was when I was in school. And then anytime Portland State came, we're like, all right, cool. It's a game. It's definitely a more exciting game than when Northern Colorado comes to town, than when UC Davis, Sac State, um, Northern Arizona. Like it, because at least that regional feel. We probably like that team better than, or better than most of the other programs that aren't in this little regional pocket of the Big Sky, as in the Idaho's, Montanas, and Portland State. So maybe it's a rivalry in that aspect, but they don't really bring fans ever. Where Idaho, they'll bring some fans. Montana, they'll bring some fans. Montana State will bring some fans. Portland State doesn't. No other team really does. They'll have some family members, but like that's it. Those are going to be the only three traveling teams to come all the way up to Cheney. No one else is gonna. Um, so we're looking at this team: Portland State 2-5, Eastern Washington 2-5. Portland State, I mean, they've won the games they're supposed to. They've lost the games they're supposed to, but they've even lost a little bit bigger than us. So they played UW, got smoked. They played a really bad San Jose State, which people are starting to think Portland State was really good because they lost by like 7 to San Jose State. And I had to tell people to pump the brakes in the beginning of the season because it's San Jose State. If you are a low-tier Mountain West team, you're not getting any type of better recruits than a Big Sky team. You're not. Maybe a few. Overall, it's the same caliber of players. You're just getting more of them. You're getting 20 more scholarships. So 5 extra scholarships a year basically is what you're kind of offering for like a class. You have 5 more seniors, 5 more juniors, 5 more sophomores, 5 more freshmen. That's pretty much about it. Doesn't change the amount of players that are on the field. So when we go up with a low-tier Mountain West team like a UNLV, the talent, we can go toe-to-toe with them any day of the week. So people were saying Portland State should get top 25 votes because they were a very close loss week 1 against San Jose State. I just said that's ridiculous. Weber State would have beat them. Sac State would have beat them. Montana would have beat them. Montana State would have beat them. We probably wouldn't have this year. Just being transparent, but it would have been close. Idaho would have beat them. So it is what it is. Portland State's kind of in that. If we're looking at tiers of the Big Sky this year, you go Montana State, Weber State, Sac State, and it looks like Idaho and Montana. They're all kind of in that tier. They're all going to be playoff caliber teams. Montana's losing some close games to the top teams, but there is that tier breakaway. And then after that, you probably have us, UC Davis, Portland State. That's probably the next tier. Then you have NAU, Northern Colorado, Idaho State, and Cal Poly. That's kind of probably the tier after. So we're in tier 2 with Portland State. I just think we're playing better than Portland State. Now, again, some of the statistics won't show it, like defensively, but we played a really brutal schedule. They haven't played an easy schedule either. They played Idaho, Weber, Montana, and University of Washington. So Portland State, Eastern Washington, and South Dakota have played some brutal, brutal schedules. I'd say the top 3 of us, we've all played the most difficult schedules. So this isn't to bash on Portland State for kind of some of their performances. They've gotten blown out by the teams they're supposed to get blown out by. They beat a D2 team or NAI team. I think it's Lincoln. I don't know who they are. I don't know if they're regional. I just don't know. So they blew them out. But then NAU was a close game. NAU, I think, is on about the same caliber as Cal Poly. Maybe a little bit better than Cal Poly. But when you look at their Weber game, we are better. We're going to find out if we're better than how they performed against Idaho and Montana soon. But guess what? We got this Portland State game. If we win, we're better than them. If not, they're probably better than us, even if we have better performances versus some of the other teams. But they really couldn't do anything against Weber State. We struggled, but we put points on the board. We were able to stop them in some key things. There were some weird special teams plays in that game versus Weber State. That always happens, but overall, we performed quite a bit better watching the game than Portland State could. This Portland State game was over at halftime for sure. They could do nothing against Weber State. Idaho, they hung in close for the first half. Then all of a sudden, Idaho did what they've been doing all season, and they kind of just, all right, we're going to start blowing you out now. Yeah, and then Montana, they just didn't look good at all, any portion of the game. So when we're looking at this, so of course, Eastern Washington's weakness is still stopping the run. I think we got a pretty good DB crew. We got a good secondary, but our weakness is stopping the run. Well, good news is Portland State has been a pretty bad rushing team. That's their quarterback. He's leading at 78 carries, 324 yards, 4 touchdowns, which that is kind of our weakness, a quarterback who can run and throw. So it is going to make it interesting. But overall, I think Portland State ranks 90 in the FCS in rushing. Passing, they're middle of the pack. They're not great, not good. They do make mistakes. Bo Kelly. Who's his name? I was thinking of, so it is Bo Kelly. Wasn't the last guy from Cal Poly Bo Kelly as well? I think so. So that's where I just got confused. Bo Kelly's an All-American. He was a beast last year. He's torching it this year again. He's a really good wide receiver, so that's going to create some issues. But I don't know. I like our chances versus Portland State, especially being at home. Portland State hasn't shown a lot of defensive ability. They're decent offensively in some games, other games not so much. The only thing that does make me nervous is, their quarterback. He's a dual threat guy, and we've struggled with that this year, right? We saw that in the Tennessee State game. We saw that in Montana State game. We saw that in the Sac State game. If you can run, throw, have a combination of both, there's going to be some gaps. You're going to find some holes. But if we can stay aggressive, if we just don't fall apart, I think we can pick apart this Portland State team. Again, I thought that before Cal Poly too, so we'll see. But I like our wide receivers over their DBs. I really do. We've had Justice Jackson. We have Tuna. We're kind of splitting up the running back routes. It seems like every game, someone else is kind of the big playmaker, where they don't really have a good running back. Again, that sounds mean, and maybe it's inaccurate as well. Maybe we're going to find out some things. But overall, their whole offensive system runs through their quarterback, just like it did last year, Davis Alexander. If we can somehow shut down the quarterback, they're not going to be able to do much. But that's the key. Can we shut down this running quarterback? I'm not positive. I think it is going to be a good game. Here's what I will say. I've been pretty brutal against Barnum. That's Portland State's head coach. I think this is Bruce Barnum's last few years. He took it over in 2015. And that year, Portland State, phenomenal. Went to the playoffs, had 2 FBS wins. They beat Washington State and then Texas State or North Texas, like 66-14. It was something brutal. They made the playoffs. They lost in the first game against Northern Iowa, I believe. But it was a pretty close game from what I remember. I could be totally wrong on that. Maybe it was a blowout. They had a bye. They lost to Northern Iowa, who's always a tough team. Other than that, Bruce Barnum's really struggled at Portland State. This season isn't anything different. So if we can be aggressive, if we can figure out a way to, stop this QB from running, I think we got a really good chance. If we can force him to throw the ball, he's going to make some mistakes. We'll be able to capitalize on those mistakes, get some short field. But yeah, I don't know what the weather is going to be like. That could play a factor. It always does. But it should be a little colder. We're getting into that cold season. That turf becomes a little slippery in the cold. But yeah, I like our ability to win this game. I think we're just more athletic. I think we're better coached. We got more experience, I think, overall. So yeah, give me Eastern Washington winning this game, going to 3-5. Let's see. Score prediction. I don't think it's going to be like the Cal Poly game. I think Portland State's going to score some points. I think we're going to score some points. Give me Eastern Washington 35, Portland State 27. I think it's still going to be a one-possession type of game. But yeah, Eastern Washington 35, Portland State 27. We get a dub. Perfect. Yeah. So it was 40 minutes. Again, want to hold it a little bit shorter. I know I ramble on quite a bit because I have no clue what I'm going to talk about until I pull up some of these slides. So you just get to listen to me. Well, thank you guys so much for listening. Please like, subscribe. You can find us on FCS Fans Nation. That is where we're doing pretty much all this YouTube content. If you like other shows and not just myself or Eastern Washington, well, then guess what? There's a South Dakota State podcast. There's a Montana podcast. There's a Jacksonville State podcast. There's a Wax Sun podcast. There's another new one. And then, of course, we have like the Big Boy Show. That's what we all call it, but that's just mine, Matt, Jamie's FCS Fans Nation, the original podcast that we're just overlooking all of the FCS. So please like, subscribe, do all that jazz. But yeah, we'll have a basketball episode soon, and then I'm probably this week going to try, depending on that open house, try and record on Sunday to push this out a little bit earlier next week. So can't make any promises. That's what I'm going to do my best for. All right, now I got to get ready for work. Go Eags. Boom.